It has been about 6 months since we began posting our boat life videos on YouTube. We felt like it was probably time for a Q&A, so we posted on all of our platforms, YouTube, our weekly email called our Sunday Summary, Facebook, and Instagram, asking for and requesting your questions.
If you're new around here, I'm Elliot, this is Jen, and this is our pup, Ollie. Back in January of 2021, we bought our boat Pivot with the hopes of doing America's Great Loop. We started in Florida and made our way all the way to Maryland before I unfortunately broke my wrist this past summer. After a summer of recovering and then a fall of doing boat projects, we decided to head south to prepare for the Great Loop in 2022, and currently we are in the Florida Keys.
Now, without further ado, let's get to the questions. We've organized this video by topic because we got a ton of questions. So not only have we organized them by topic, but we've also included chapters for the video. So if you scroll into the description box of the video, you can see where the questions are at the video. So you can skip through if you have a particular question that you want answered.
Exactly. Now for the first chapter, we have our boat Pivot and boat projects. The first question is from Steven on Instagram, and he asked, why did we choose Pivot?
Great question, Steven. Our first consideration was cost. Pivot was in our budget. Excellent. 2, Pivot was a decent size, so we felt that we could probably learn to maneuver and handle Pivot based off of her kind of moderate size.
And considering we had zero boating experience at the time, that was definitely important.
It was. And then 3, Pivot was ready to go. So the previous owner did quite a bit of engine maintenance and a lot of other projects around the boat, but specifically the engine. He redid a lot of the things on it, and then he also made sure there was a lot of the safety measures or mechanisms in place, which we felt like really comfortable with Pivot because of that.
Another reason why we chose Pivot is because Pivot is very forgiving for new boaters. So she's got a full keel, which means our propeller is protected. She's got a single propeller, which also helps her propeller being protected. She's well built and solid fiberglass, so bumps and bruises, not too worried about. And especially cruising through the Dismal Swamp Canal, we're not too worried about hitting a deadhead and bending a propeller because it's mainly protected.
On to our next question. If you could change any one thing about your boat, what would it be? And this is from Steven on Instagram.
Now we have 2 different answers for this one, and mine is speed. Now Pivot's a trawler. We do not go very fast. We average about 6 knots, which is fantastic for the majority of the time because we get to really enjoy the journey, which is a lot of what the Great Loop is. But there are some days when we have a lot of miles to get, or we have a short weather window, or it's just not very comfortable cruising, and it would be nice to get there faster. And they say you can always make a fast boat slower, but you can't really make a slow boat faster. And so that would be one thing I would change. However, like anything in boat life, it's not just a good thing to go faster because that's also more expensive, but it would be nice to have the option.
And if I could change one thing about Pivot, it would be the bed situation. In both our V-berth and our aft cabin, none of the beds are big enough for 2 people to comfortably sleep in, and it would just be really nice to be able to sleep together. And yeah, it just having the separate beds, it's fine, we make it work, but having this boat has taught us what we would want potentially in another boat or in any other circumstances going forward.
Now a few different people have asked us, primarily on YouTube I think, how much did Pivot cost? Now we're not going to share the exact number, but we will say that Pivot was less than $50,000, and considering all of the repairs and enhancements that we did, including replacing the entire decks, a full set of lithium batteries and solar, and new dinghy engine, among other things, we probably put $10,000 to $15,000 into Pivot.
Would you have paid more for a different boat if you had known what problems you were going to have, or are you happy with the price and experience that you gained? This is a question from Rob on YouTube.
We have learned so much from Pivot being our first boat, and about a year in, we're still happy with her. There's definitely quite a few items that we know to look for in another boat that now we know just what they are, like how an anchor affects it, what kind of dinghy situation, how does that affect your day-to-day life, living as a full-time cruiser and doing the loop, the electronics. There's a lot of things that we've learned, and so those will totally play a factor in a future boat, but we wouldn't have learned them without being on Pivot right now, and yeah, we're happy.
Yeah, we're grateful for the lessons that we've learned on Pivot. Pivot's a good boat.
We've gotten this question from a few people recently, and specifically to our galley and navigation area, and wondering if we have like fold-out counters there, and do we use them?
And the answer is no, it's not a fold-out counter. It's actually a fairly large cutting board that the previous owner cut to like round circles in the bottom of it, the base, that you can put on top of our 2-burner stove to basically extend more counter space. But we don't actually use the cutting board. And then the cutting board just stores on to the side, like underneath the nav station, 1 for ease of use, and then 2 for like storage. It's just a really easy storage spot. But we don't use it. It's difficult to wash in our smaller sink. And then we have a smaller cutting board which works out perfectly for us, so we don't really use it that often. We've only used it once, and that was in our Friendsgiving video where we were cooking an entire like Thanksgiving meal.
We do have a fold-out counter a little bit more aft, but again, we don't use that. We just use our maiden cutting board, and there's plenty of counter space all throughout Pivot, so
yeah,
no problem for us.
The next question is, did you get a survey done, and did the survey tell us anything about the decks? This is from TP on YouTube.
Now, we definitely got a survey done. We had 0 boating experience and didn't know right side from wrong at all. So that was a huge just thing to take a little bit of weight off our shoulders. But that being said, the previous owner was amazing. Bob and Yvette, they showed us everything in and out of Pivot, and everything matched the survey. And they even gave us a survey prior to even like us showing interest, so we knew the status of the boat, and it definitely did live up to what we experienced. Now, the surveyor did mention the decks, and honestly, if he didn't, they were pretty glaring, because as soon as you step on Pivot, especially in the aft area, they were like trampoline, so you couldn't mistake them. They were definitely there. His opinion was that a lot of people will turn around from a good boat when the decks are soft, but if they don't affect you and they're not impacting your cruising in your day-to-day, then it's not a big deal. Unfortunately, they did end up causing us quite a few problems, especially because of all the holes on the underside from screws and where things came together. So we did end up having to replace it, as you guys saw. But we definitely didn't plan to do that when we first bought Pivot. But that's part of boat life and part of pivoting. Now, Luke from our Sunday summary, who's also a patron, asked, what kind of diesel mileage does Pivot get?
Great question, Luke. We get 1.5 gallons an hour, and we do about 6 knots, which correlates to about 6.9 miles per hour, which is about 4.6 miles per gallon.
Now, if you're ever interested in how we kind of determine those numbers and how we kind of keep it in check with respect to a boat, let us know and we'll write an article about it.
Yeah. Okay, our next section is on working while traveling, working abroad, working while cruising. Karen from Instagram asked, was it challenging to embark on full-time travel? How do you balance work and travel, and what is your advice to someone get interested in doing the same?
Definitely for us, the stars aligned back in 2019 for us to basically quit our jobs and put our normal career path on hold and pivot. And we're really happy that we did that, and we wouldn't trade it in for the world. Jennifer had just graduated with her double master's from Georgia Tech, and I was at a good spot in my career, so it just worked out. As far as balancing working and traveling, that is always a challenge, but we are trying to work on that for this year. I'm trying to take at least a day off a week just to do whatever, nothing or anything, no strings.
Yeah, Whenever we feel that we're getting anywhere near burnout, we make sure to have a no camera, no social media kind of day, and really just take a day to recharge our batteries and get back to a good place.
Try to be more sustainable about it. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah. And I think too, when it comes to timing, for us, there's no real perfect time. It's just we felt that this was probably the best time that we'll ever have to start and go. So we chose it and we went with it.
As far as for any advice for anybody who wants to do the same, I would say there's nothing to it but to do it. Jumping in is great, and make sure you plan well. There's a lot of resources out there, especially about, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, by saving and quitting cold turkey and just going for it, working while remote. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. One resource that you can look at is the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. He does a great job of doing like a how-to guide for how to basically transition a full-time job, 40-hour week going into the office, to a fully remote job and a 4-hour work week, as he puts it. Now, Bill on YouTube wants to know, what is an average monthly expense for our journey?
So glad you asked, Bill. We will be compiling our monthly budget as we complete the loop in 2022. So be sure to either be on our Sunday summary to receive them, and we'll be creating them at the end of every month, so that way you can see what we are spending to do and complete the Great Loop. The next question is, do you have any advice for budgeting for full-time travel, and how has it changed from international travel to boat life? And this question is from Holly and Andrew on YouTube.
Well, thank you, Holly and Andrew, for the question. It's definitely, our budget has changed quite a bit, but it's the items are replaced by similar items. So, for example, hotels and Airbnbs while traveling internationally are now replaced with mooring balls and marina reservations.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, the costs are very similar. Now, a mooring ball is relatively cheap, but a marina reservation could easily be the cost of a hotel in various countries of the world. I'd also say, like, what you spend on flights and transportation around the cities is made up for in fuel costs. So there's a lot of very similar expenses. One of the things that makes boat life quite a bit more expensive is all the maintenance and upkeep that you have to do on the boat. Everything has to be serviced every few hours, and a boat is, you know, always a project. There's always something that needs to be fixed, something that breaks, and that does add up over the course of the year.
Granted, we do try to anchor out the majority of our time to help us kind of balance out some of the other high budgetary items.
Exactly.
So it does kind of...
That helps offset it a little bit. And
Yeah.
also, since we're traveling with our home, we're able to cook the vast majority of our meals, which also saves us money compared to when you're nationally traveling. That's a very hard option to do because you're missing a lot of the essentials in most places that you travel to.
Yeah. You know, both international travel and boat life have their challenges or their high budgetary items as well as their low budgetary items, and I think like overall it does a pretty good job of balancing out.
Now, Steven on YouTube wants to know, what portion of the time are you all working while the boat is underway? Any issues to help with engine noise at these times, and tips to help quiet it down?
I'll let you answer that one.
When we kicked off the loop in the early part of 2021, I was still software consulting full-time, and then Jennifer was editing the videos full-time. So we kind of had different noise levels. I'd have meetings, but Jen would need to focus on editing the video. For the meetings, what I did, which worked out pretty well, was just using a blanket and then trying to sit as far away from the engine as possible. When I needed to be inside because of maybe outside noise, outside the boat, and maybe power, what we would do is whoever was captaining the boat, if I was inside, Jen would probably be at the flybridge, and she would lower the RPMs because that lowers the noise. So that really worked as far as like talking and needing to have a low surrounding noise. The other thing that worked whenever you needed to focus and it didn't really matter about talking is we have over-the-ear headphones that we use, and we use since we were internationally traveling, that are noise canceling, and they do a fantastic job. Now, another question from Steve on YouTube. He wants to know if we use a social media program to coordinate the timing of our post between platforms.
We do have a lot that we need to coordinate.
We have blog posts that go out, our YouTube videos need to be scheduled, Instagram posts need to be scheduled, our Sunday summary needs to be scheduled, and Facebook posts that need to be scheduled.
So we do that using YouTube Studio, which is the platform that YouTube provides creators with. Facebook Business Suite allows us to coordinate Facebook and Instagram posts, as well as we use MailChimp for our Sunday summary, and then we have WordPress for our blogs.
But we don't use any separate program to coordinate all of them. We kind of just use each one to coordinate each one.
Yeah. The next question, does Wi-Fi or cell service dictate your location, and has it generally worked well everywhere? This question is from Steven on YouTube.
For those that don't know, we use a hotspot, we use our cell phones, and then for both of those we use our cell phone booster from WeBoost. We've had internet, pretty decent internet, almost everywhere on the loop so far. The only place that has been kind of tough has been in the more rural parts of North Carolina, like near the Albemarle and Alligator River. So all in all, it's been great, and we wouldn't change it. Now, Doug Lane from YouTube wants to know, how do you plan and manage your time between work, boat projects, and travel activities? And in particular, do you find it challenging to focus on work given the unpredictability that comes with traveling by boat?
Yes, absolutely. That's the short answer. The long answer is that the best way that we can do it is, one, we try our best, and two, we stay flexible. So, for example, if we're finding that we're in a particular area that we need a weather window to have a much more comfortable, safe, enjoyable cruise, we'll take a weather window over having a rest day or a work day, a day at anchor, just because we know that we might not get another weather window, and it's important for us to get, continue keeping a certain pace doing the Great Loop. However, there are certain times where we'll spend several days in an anchorage just to get a lot of work done because, one, we have great cell service and Wi-Fi connectivity. Two, there's a great place to take Ollie out to shore. And yeah, just a lot of different factors. So sometimes we'll just be in a place for a lot longer, and you may see it on YouTube as only 1 or 2 days being in a certain place, but maybe we'll be there for 4, 5, 6 days a week, just because it's a great workplace for us. So it's all about staying flexible and understanding the constraints and the limitations, but also the opportunities in this lifestyle.
Yeah. Well said.
Todd from our Sunday summary asked us, it seems that you are doing this in an economical way. What is a typical month's expenses and your budget for boat upgrades?
Now, as we mentioned, we're going to be posting our expenses going forward, so be on the lookout for that. And as for our budget for upgrades, that's slightly different. And the way that we kind of prioritize boat upgrades is and how much it impacts our daily life. So for example, it was hard for us to sleep with our previous anchor. We upgraded our anchor. It was hard for us to get comfortable with leaky beds and sleeping in wet beds all the time, so we replaced the deck. But with an older boat, anywhere you look, you have boat projects. So it's all about prioritizing what you want to do and what needs to be done. Overall, we bought Pivot and decided to do America's Great Loop to see this part of the United States. And while we have, and me in particular, began to enjoy the boat projects and fixing things, that's not what we want to do full-time right now. Now for the next chapter, this is about our camera gear. And our question comes from Gary on YouTube. He wants to know, what cameras do we work with and what editing software do we use?
Great question, Gary. We posted a video of our primary camera gear, which we will link in the video. And we also listed all of our camera gear, accessories and everything on our website at schoandjo.com/gear.
As for what editing software we use the Adobe Suite. So for videos, we use Premiere Pro, and for any photos, we use Lightroom.
Our next chapter is about Ollie and dogs on the loop, which is a pretty popular topic. Our first question is, how difficult was it to get Ollie used to boat life and deal with longer durations on the boat? Any specific training approaches? And this is from Todd from our Sunday summary.
Ollie fit right into boat life. We have had some challenges with her doing her business on board, but besides that, she loves it, and she's really become a nice sea dog.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting here editing this video, I realized we never answered the second part of this question, and to try to get Ollie to do her business on the boat, we did a few things. First thing is we built her like a little piece of astroturf. She didn't like that, that kind of became a bed for her. The second thing that we did is we bought some pheromone spray. That got her interested in it, but she just wanted to roll around in it, so that didn't work. We tried to have other dogs pee on it, nothing worked. We are still working on that. We have heard that the trick is to just keep delaying it, and whenever they finally go, just a billion treats. So I think we're going to try that in the future. All right, now Carol from our Instagram, who's also a patron, asked, how does Ollie react to the marine wildlife?
So Ollie just recently started noticing dolphins, and it's become rather annoying, to say the least. She barks at the dolphins, which is not very welcoming to the dolphins, we think. Yeah, so it's kind of annoying, but overall, with the birds going by, she's totally chill, relaxed.
It doesn't count as marine wildlife, but Ollie definitely loves coconuts. So I hope we can show you guys some of that in the future because it is hilarious.
Yeah, and it's super cute. Our next question is, how is it cruising with your pup? This question is from Rocky and Bosco Travel the World on Instagram.
And we wouldn't have it any other way. That's one of the things we love most about boat life so far, is being able to keep our family together and travel with Ollie.
Yeah.
For the next chapter, we have Jennifer and Elliot. The first question is, when did you get engaged? From Jen on Instagram. A different Jen.
We got engaged in Iceland on a glacier in June of 2016.
We have this is way before YouTube. We do have GoPro footage of that, so if anybody wants to see it, maybe we'll release it in the future.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
Our next question, when are you coming through Florida? Are you planning on getting close to the Keys? And this is from Ian on Instagram.
And we are in the Keys.
Whoop, whoop.
Currently we're in Islamorada, and we have Lorelai's right behind me. This is a fantastic stop, and we're going to show more of it when we are vlogging on the loop.
And going north.
We have another question on YouTube that says, do you guys get into fights about the boat? And if so, what triggers it?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Getting down into it.
Ooh. Yeah, so sometimes we have...
Yes.
Yes, we have lots of disagreements. A lot of our disagreements initially with the boat were revolved around having wet, leaky decks that led to wet and cold beds, and that was just not a good situation. So we solved that by doing the decks, and we are much happier with the done, completed decks.
And most of the time, boat life was very hard for us in the very beginning. Just getting used to everything and learning how to dock and learning how to anchor and learning how to just drive the boat. Because everything was so new and so uncomfortable for us, and we dove right in. So that led to problems. Nothing major, but and we've grown through those things, and obviously now we know a lot more than we did. And we're still learning, but things are less scary.
If we know that we're going to have a potentially stressful situation, it kind of goes down like this. We are on the same team. I love you. We are doing this because we love each other. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Our motto is we're going slower than slow. So we have several things that we have now gotten used to like incorporating just like into our relationship. To know that there's no negative feelings, no harm, no meanness. It's just we're on the same team and we're doing our best.
And to add in the other side of things is that we have a business together too. So anything like business related sometimes adds stress, and and the boat and everything. So it's definitely been a challenging time. But we've been through a lot together. We've been together for almost 13 years now.
Almost 14 years.
Almost 14. Been through high school, college together, our first home together, traveling the world, getting stuck in a hotel in India for 3 months.
100 days.
Yeah, we've been through a lot. So boating and this phase of our life is just another phase, and
Yeah.
through it. I love you.
I love you.
Now, Juanita has asked us, I know you've dealt with seasickness from time to time, as most boaters do. What have you found that prevents it, and or how do you help deal with it?
Great question. So initially when we first started boating, I did not have any seasickness, and I think I attribute that mostly to we're on the intra-coastal and it's pretty protected. However, whenever we would get into particularly the Albemarle or the Chesapeake, those were the two areas that I had experienced the most seasickness. But prior to that, I realized that I was feeling a little woozy, and I basically eliminated drinking coffee from my diet, and I replaced it with black tea, and that has helped significantly. I don't have any more like wooziness or like a little bit of seasickness. That's completely been removed. But then whenever I do feel seasickness, like in the Albemarle or in the Chesapeake, particularly, I just try and make sure that I'm either on the fly bridge, or I'm at the V-berth, and I'm just like looking at the horizon. I'm getting the wind in my face. I'm not on my phone. I'm not on the computer. I cannot work during those times. I just feel really, really bad. But I don't take any medicine for it or Dramamine or anything like that. It just doesn't affect me as bad as I think other people it might. But overall, eliminating coffee has been a huge help for me.
I would say, as in a trip planning / preventative measure too, we kind of, being on Pivot, we understand what makes Pivot quite a bit more rocky and unsteady, and we try to plan out our travel days to prevent that. So that's kind of like a preventative thing. You can't always control it. Sometimes it'll be great for the entire way, and then for one stretch, one inlet, you're going to be rocky and rolly. But it is something that you can do as well.
Right. Our next question is from Todd, who asked from our Sunday summary, how do you do this without any raised voices, especially when docking? My wife and I have a 23-foot boat, and even with that smaller boat, we've had a few memorable docking events over the years.
I think,
great question, Todd.
Yeah.
Great question.
I think there's a couple answers to this. One, we actually haven't filmed that much of our docking experiences because when we were starting the loop, we were just focused on learning and doing it without crashing the boat, so we didn't film as much. And secondly, we definitely have had those experiences where we're yelling and it's high stress. But what we've done is we have our mantra that we say before we dock every single time.
What
are we doing? What's our motto? Slower than slow. And then we talk through the plan before we dock, so we both know, which way the boat's going to hit the dock first, which line, who's ever captaining the boat, which line we want to go onto the dock first, which side of the boat we're docking on. So we don't even come to the dock unless we have our fenders out, our lines ready, and we've chatted about it. That definitely helps a lot. And then besides that, it's just experience. We've had one really bad docking experience, two really bad docking experiences on our maiden voyage. We did some practice. We've had a lot of really good experiences after that, and so just experience has made it better. Not to say that we won't ever have a tough docking experience again, and we won't ever yell again, but kind of doing those preparation steps beforehand, saying we're on the same page, has kind of stopped that from happening. And then for me, since I'm normally the one who's docking the boat, I've just gotten a lot more experience about how to move the boat. So it's a lot less. When we started, the boat got out of control sometimes, and I had to fight to get it back into control, and I didn't know what I was doing. Now I know if I need to move a certain way, what are the steps that I need to do that.
Yeah, and I think I would just add that there's no such thing as over communication on a boat, specifically in these more stressful situations. So even if I think that maybe Elliot can see whatever I'm seeing, I still voice it and I still communicate it, so that way he knows whatever I'm seeing. If it's oh, the stern is clear, until I get a 10-4 or a Roger, I will keep telling him that the stern is clear, or 3 feet away from the bow, or whatever it is, just so that way communication is not something that's hidden or in the shadows. It is open, and everybody, both of us, know as much as possible.
Right, and there's a few things like as far as communication that I hope we show in our future videos, because I think we're gonna film a lot more of our docking because we know like a lot of people are interested in it. But there are a few like phrases that we say a lot. One is the stern is clear or the stern is not clear. The other is line on. The other is line in the water. And so a few of these phrases from Jennifer or who's ever doing the dock lines really helps the captain know what he needs to do.
Yeah. And we are by no means experts. We are totally learning, and we are continuing still learning. It's just that we've been having to do we've been doing boating basically every day for several months. So it's our life, it is our daily life.
For our next chapter, we have boat life. Steven from Instagram would like to know if we would ever consider a day trip or a ride-along for our viewers.
I think for right now, we are still learning, so we don't want to bring other people on board unless they're our friends or family.
Yeah.
But in the future, we might consider bringing our patrons on board. Our next question is from Applins in the Alps on YouTube. What is the best and worst things about boat life?
I would say the best thing about boat life is just the locations we get to see, and there's a lot of peace and calmness out on the water, which is just fantastic. And we would never see these places otherwise, especially a lot of the small towns that are just so pretty and gets us to see a different side of the United States. And I would say the worst thing about boat life to us is the cost of it. That's tough, especially when you're starting a business, and the amount of time it takes. It is literally a full-time job just maintaining the boat. It's another full-time job planning destinations and weather windows for traveling on the loop. So it's a lot of work, but you get a lot of rewards. And a lot of people say boat life is the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Couldn't agree more. That's totally true.
Now, Rob and Jenny on YouTube has asked us, what made you guys decide on boat life, and how long did you look for boats?
I think you should answer that question.
Okay. So back when we were in India, in lockdown, we moved to another state in India, like after we had stayed in that hotel for a few months, called Goa. And it was our first taste of freedom in India, and we had a scooter. It was great. But we took that time to decompress and also think about the future. And what we realized is that we really love traveling, but we know we have to shift what we do in the face of the pandemic. And so we thought, okay, we have a few different options, and including van life, boat life, etc. And we decided that we would try boat life. The reason why we decided that initially was because we had a family member who had a sailboat that was damaged in a hurricane and needed some work on it, but we could pretty much work on it and then take it, and we wouldn't need to buy a boat. And that was a huge opportunity for us. Now, we started doing that. We didn't put any of that on YouTube, but eventually we realized it just wasn't working out for us because the boat was too small, basically. It was only a 28-foot sailboat. And so in that same boatyard, we found Pivot, and then we documented all of that. Yeah, so that's why we chose it. And how long did we look for boats? We didn't. Pivot kind of fell in our lap. It was a friend of a friend. We got to know the owners and got to walk through. We really did not look for different boats. And that's probably a lot of ignorance there and a lot of naivety, but it worked out, and we're really happy with Pivot so far.
Our next question is from John on YouTube, who is also a Patreon, asked, as you've gained knowledge and experience, what decisions would you resist should you start over?
I think the very initial foray into boat life for us was very difficult. Namely our maiden voyage. There was a lot of things that we learned to trial by fire. It was very, very stressful and kind of influenced a lot of our decisions shortly thereafter. And I think that we could have had that process been a lot smoother if we took some more time, maybe even paid for a captain on board to teach us how to maneuver our boat. But that initial part was really tough for us. Now that we've done it, we've learned a lot from it. So it wasn't just useless, but there's easier ways to learn things than that. Now, from Catherine on YouTube, she asked, what has been the best surprise since living on the water?
I think there's a few things. One, the boating community is incredibly friendly, helpful, and will go out of their way to do something that like you don't even know that you need, but turns out you need it. Two, it has been lovely to be outdoors all the time. That's just been a real treat. And three, all of the wildlife. There is nothing better than seeing wild dolphins swimming with the boat. I mean, that is just like top notch, like favorite of all favorite kind of boat life experiences. Now, Catherine from YouTube also asked, if you could take Pivot to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
For me, right now, it would be really cool to cruise the islands of Greece.
However, I don't think we'll be doing that on Pivot.
We will not be crossing the Atlantic with Pivot.
No.
Sorry to disappoint you all.
Catherine, you'll have to join us for a different boat and a different trip for that one.
Catherine from YouTube also asked, now that you're more experienced boaters, what would you tell yourselves from a year ago as you geared up for this journey?
I would have told myself that this experience as a whole has taught me that Elliot and I have two completely different learning styles. Elliot is a dive head first into the deep end, into cold water, and I hate that. I am a get into the shallow end, wade in, and I will slowly make my way to the deep end. And so knowing that these two learning styles or approaches kind of clash, there isn't a right or a wrong way. They're just different. And to embrace what the other person kind of like has to offer, or like to kind of give and take. And that's part of the learning process. And that there's absolutely no better thing than experience and practice, and just keep practicing, keep getting more experience, and that will make us a better boater. Not by reading the books and stuff like that. So
now Catherine also asked, what is our favorite memory so far?
So we just this past weekend we had on board 6 people, friends and family. So we had 2 different couples on, and it was definitely pushing Pivot to the limits, but it was by far the most fun weekend that we have had on the boat since owning the boat ever. It was amazing. We started out in Islamorada. We took the boat out with our friends and family to the reef, Alligator Reef. We went snorkeling. We came back to the Gulf side, went to a state park, got on a free mooring ball. We grilled out. We had the paddle boards out. We were jumping in the water. It was so much fun. And the best thing about all of it was that we got to share these experiences with our friends and family. That's one of the reasons why we got a 2-bedroom boat, so that we could have our friends and family visit us. And Catherine, we want you to come visit us.
Now Catherine also asked, what is our favorite item on the boat?
So I love our Berkey water filter. It is not a boat item per se, so it means that it does not break like a lot of boat things break, and it does not require a lot of maintenance. It's reusable, so I can clean the filters and continue using it.
And we have a link for that here, if you're interested.
The next question is your boat life open-ended, or do you have plans to stop living aboard at a certain time? This question is from Gary on YouTube.
Now, we are definitely taking everything day by day. If you asked us about a year and a half ago if we thought we would ever own a boat, the answer might have been probably not. But now we're on a boat doing America's Great Loop, so it's really hard to tell. We definitely are going to take things a phase at a time, and America's Great Loop is our current journey. We have some different options coming up next afterwards, so stick around. It's going to be a fun, wild ride.
If you have made it this far in the video, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you. Our last chapter is America's Great Loop. First question, what is something good about cruising the loop that you did not anticipate before leaving? This question is from Rocky and Bosco Travel the World on Instagram.
And it's got to be the people, the loopers, the camaraderie, the friendship, the hospitality. People are so nice, and it's just so amazing. Looking up another boat on Nebo, saying hi, and just starting conversations like that, or you just spot a looper flag and then you
Yeah.
kind of look them up afterwards, or you come to their boat in the anchorage. It's really cool, and we've met so many people from so many different walks of life, which has just been awesome. And we're really excited to meet more people, and especially more loopers, as we really do the whole loop this upcoming year.
Yeah.
Steven on YouTube asked, how many cruisers do you encounter under 40, and do you still visit many of the 50 plus traditional docktail loopers?
So first question, do we encounter many under 40? No, not at all. We have virtually, not even in person yet, we've met one other like looper who is under 40. That's Tim and Kate from Sweet Day. But we've not met them in person yet. We've been anxiously hoping to meet them in person. But yeah, we have not met many loopers. We have met other like young cruisers, primarily on sailboats, but none doing the loop. Second part to that question, do we still visit with many of the 50 plus traditional docktail loopers? Yes, we do.
Of course.
We don't want to isolate ourselves just because we're not the same age. We're still doing the loop, and we find that there's no boundaries when it comes to the loop. There's just this huge open community of just like people who are excited that you're doing the loop and that you're sharing similar journeys and memories as them, and that's really, really special. So yeah, we really do enjoy speaking to the 50 plus community as well.
Yeah, honestly, we don't even think about it. It's just
It is what it
people
is.
doing the loop, other loopers.
Yeah. The next question is, have you felt unprepared or faced any navigational challenges not addressed by the book or your charts? This question is from Steven on YouTube.
Now, we use Navionics and Active Captain for a lot of our trip planning and mainly for our charting tools. And it gets updated every day, so that has been pretty accurate. And whenever we've met something unexpected, it's not because of the charts, it's because we skipped it when we were planning, or I missed it when I was looking at the route for the day. There has been a couple sections that the chart was inaccurate, but the comments on Active Captain were accurate. So that just happened recently, actually. But what we did is whenever we got to the area, we used our eyesight first. So we saw it looked good, and then and then proceeded. Pete and Caroline from YouTube asked, what in particular inspired you to pick up the Great Loop as your adventure at this time? And they say, we're helping to do it ourselves. Well, we hope you guys get to do it yourselves.
Yeah. So what started this whole thing was we learned about the Great Loop when we were in Goa, India, trying to figure out what are we going to do next after international travel. And Elliot's dad actually told us about the Great Loop. He told us that there's this boat route that you can go, and it goes around the United States, and it's all connected, and it seemed like a fun thing to do. We agreed, it seemed like a fun thing to do. But then when we looked into it a bit further, we saw that you're not crossing any oceans, although you are going through the Great Lakes, which arguably can be similar or have similar effects to the oceans, but you're not going through any oceans. And we also found that the Great Loop is a great goal for us. It gave us something to work towards as new boaters. So if we really, really did not enjoy boating, or found it to be very stressful and all this stuff, that we could, say, okay, we finished the Great Loop, we know boating's not for us, but at least like it gave us something to work towards instead of just saying like, oh, we're gonna boat for 5 months or 6 months.
For the indefinite future.
Right,
yeah.
or for the indefinite future. It gave us something of like, okay, this is our goal, which we really like. Now, our final question is from Paul, Cheryl, Piper, and Duchess on Patreon. What are the lessons learned in your first 700 miles? What are 1 or 2 things you would do differently?
I think the big thing that we learned in our first 700 miles and things that we would do differently, is to put a little less on our plate. At the time, when we first kicked off the Great Loop, we were learning about boat life and learning how to boat, which is a huge undertaking. We were working on YouTube full-time, editing videos and planning videos and filming and everything that comes associated with it, which is like a full-time job. I was doing software consulting about 40 hours a week, so there goes another full-time job. And then we were also doing the loop, which is a very, it takes a lot of time and effort to do the loop consistently. And so that was probably too much. And so we're really excited to basically nix the software consulting on our way north and really take some time to dive into the loop and really experience it.
Yeah, I think it gives us we have this opportunity right now to really embrace the loop, and we're really excited about that.
We hope you are too. We're really excited to show you guys our Great Loop 2022.
Yeah, and so going forward, when we start the Great Loop, we are planning on doing daily travel vlogs as we cruise the Great Loop. And we'll also be writing blog posts and doing monthly budget blog posts as well.
Yeah.
And we hope that you stick around. If you're not on our Sunday summary, we highly recommend it. It gives you a little bit more behind the scenes that things that don't make it into the video, or our current location. We ask for recommendations and suggestions. We get a little bit more connection in our Sunday summary.
Yeah. And with that, we really appreciate you guys sticking around for our Q&A. We'll do another one of these maybe next year or something, depending on how many more questions you have. We know it was long. We tried to answer most of the questions. If we left out a question that you asked, we're sorry. Leave it in the comments and we'll try to get to it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video and for sticking along with our Great Loop journey as it got postponed, and we'll be restarting very soon.
See you guys next time. Now, if you're new around here, I'm Jen, this is Elliot, and this is our pup, Ollie.
You are Elliot and I am Jen.
That's what I said.
No, you said I am Jen. You pointed at Jen, and then you pointed me at Elliot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's going swell.
However, that we'd like to get from...
There's a shark or a thing, or like, see the dark thing that's moving in the water? Yeah. It's moving that way. It's either a shark or a stingray. Holy cow.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Tea break.
Coffee break. Tea break. That's some good tea. Oh, okay. All right, well, we'll just cut all that out.
Great. We'll work first.
Great. Whoa. Allison, no bueno.
Ripperoni.
What?
Love it. Now, from Catherine on YouTube, she asked.
Now, Catherine from YouTube also asked.
Catherine also asked.
Catherine from YouTube also asked.
Now, Catherine also asked. Now, Catherine also asked. Catherine's got very